The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Let's listen as Lorraine LaPointe, coach, therapist, educator, speaker, and founder of Head Heart Synergy, brings together another enlightened guest to inspire and motivate us to move forward, achieve our dreams and desires, so that we experience midlife awakening.
And I'm your host, Lorraine LaPointe. Today we'll enjoy another candid conversation that reveals how to bring back a sense of balance and how to find forward focus. Today, take just a few moments to join us as we explore the possibilities and the perspectives that provide us with greater inner peace, power, passion, and purpose. Because that's what I call living at the edge of fulfillment in a midlife awakening.
Well, hello and welcome wherever you are in the world. You know, this week I've been thinking, we pay a hefty price for being disconnected from our body. And the symptoms for that show up as like low energy, those mysterious aches and pains. You know, we might wake up in the morning with that foggy brain, or, you know, we may have weight gain and we can't lose it, or we have digestive issues, or it can even be like food cravings. Does any of that sound familiar? Or perhaps you feel stressed out. You know, you use those words like I feel stressed out, or I feel anxious, or I'm generally unhappy. You know, you can feel disconnected, dissatisfied, or disillusioned with life. And we wake up wondering, what's next for me? Because when women in their prime aren't feeling fabulous, it shows up in ways like mood swings or trouble sleeping. We're suffering through the moments of the day. And we feel guilty about it. You know, there's an inner part of us that knows better than anyone else that how we should feel fulfilled and whole. And that part of us is connected to our soul and knows what we love and how we can live well. If this is making sense to you, then it's time to master your mindset. And it's time to create the optimal inner balance, become healthier, and experience that well-being. And today's guest will share her thoughts about how to consciously connect and discover ways to look and feel more fabulous so you can heal and shine and show up in the world as your best self. And right now, we're all on a purposeful journey, whether we're aware of it or not. And many are looking for ways to awaken their soul, and what I mean by that is to develop that trust in ourselves again, so that we can live more harmoniously with more joy and passion and authenticity and more creativity in our life. Because there's a lot going on in the world. And on today's show, we welcome our guest who is like me in that she understands that it's time to start looking inside of ourselves for answers. As we improve the relationship with ourselves, we learn to trust ourselves again, and we can begin to relate better to others. And by the way, for those who I haven't met before, hello, I'm Lorraine LaPointe. You can think of me as a mindset wellness specialist, and I guide those who are asking those big questions like, is this all there is? And what's next for me? Because research shows that in midlife, our brain chemistry actually changes, and we start to gain new perspectives, and we begin to search for the opportunities to develop our own mindset wellness. And that's why I reach out through this radio and talk for TV program, so women and a few men like you can create an inspiring, safe, and sacred space and explore different ways to live with greater peace, power, passion, and purpose. And many of you know that each week we broadcast in all kinds of different places through different social media platforms. So if you notice something in the conversation that you find interesting, be sure to let us know. So our wonderful producer, Roxy, can put that up on screen for us. And whether you're here live or you come across us later on, we invite you to engage with us and connect with us. Every single comment or download of this program is worth a day's worth of fresh water, or access to fresh water is given wherever it's needed in the world most. And you can start that process right now. Just say thanks to Roxy in the comments for all that she does behind the scenes that we're not even sure about. And she does that on our behalf. So simply add your comment or your question and send an invitation encouraging friends and family to join us on this episode as we explore mind, soul, body balance here on the Edge of Fulfillment. And you're on w4wn.com or talk4tv.com or the Head Heart Synergy Facebook fan page. Anyway, some of you know, and many of you are going to know, that each week we run a contest with different prizes and to earn different gifts. And this week you can earn a 30-minute energy balancing session with our guest, Dr. Sheri. And to be entered into that contest, all you do is listen throughout the broadcast for 5 inspirational words. And then we'll ask you to put the 5 words in the chat or in an email at the end of the show. So all you need to do is jot down the words so you can put those words in the chat at the end of the show. And you've already heard the first word. And the first word for today's show is the word energy. So we're going to take a little short break and connect afterwards with our guest, because you are listening on the Edge of Fulfillment on W4WN. That is the Women for Women Network Radio and Talk for TV. And we will be back with our guests after this short break.
Did you know video is the future on content? There are 3 good reasons why video is the future of content. Number 1, videos are often more engaging than simple pictures or music alone. Number 2, it's much easier to tell your story through video. Number 3, because we love to watch video, they go viral much faster. Hey, notice you're still watching right now. See how well it works. Next time we can play your video here instead. Ask me how. Shine online on Talk4TV and W4WN Radio.
Hey, are you looking for a brighter future? Wishing for greater calm, clarity, and confidence? What if you knew an inside job was the answer? Your mission: stop the inner burn, gain mental fitness so you get more out of life. Imagine in about 15 minutes a day for just 6 weeks. Come on, we'll show you how. Don't miss it. Just go to www.lorraine.gives/M-Fitness and join us right now. Welcome back. Quick recap. We've already heard the first of the 5 words you'll need to put in the comments at the end of the show to be eligible to win a 30-minute energy balancing session with Dr. Sheri, but don't add them yet. As a reminder, you've already heard the first word, and that was energy. And now you're listening for the 4 other words as we continue here on the Edge of Fulfillment on W4WN, the Women for Women Network Radio and Talk for TV. And I'm about to welcome today's guest because Dr. Sheri is a spiritual psychologist. She's a health educator. She's a de-stress doctor. She's a cell biologist and an energy healer. And like me, she's really passionate about helping women who are just a little over 40 to achieve optimal health, healing, and well-being in body, mind, and soul. And Dr. Sheri helps women restore balance and heal within so that they're empowered to align with their subtle energies and prevent and sometimes even reverse disease. She's particularly passionate about helping to nurture our feminine selves as we release out those energetic blocks and any trauma And we can reconnect as we manage our stress and our resiliency so that we decrease stress-related diseases. Anyway, I could go on and on. But anyway, welcome to the Edge of Fulfillment, Dr. Sheri Elle Brown.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me, Lorraine.
So good to have you here, Dr. Sheri. And I understand that you are super passionate about what you do. And I would love our listeners and watchers to learn about how you got started and a little about your story. So where would you like to begin?
Wow, what a big question, Lorraine. So, and you and I, we are so simpatico in so many ways. And so, right, at the end of the day, I'm a science girl, I'm a science geek, and we both know that science and spirituality are basically one and the same. And so that journey for me began probably in my late teens, early 20s, just connecting to the spiritual side in a different way. I earned my degree in cell biology and then health education, and I began teaching science and health education and biology. But there was a point in my life where I had a near-death experience, and I very much felt like, oh, I don't need my body anymore. I'm really just a spirit, and I'm kind of hanging out in this body, and it's not comfortable, and I don't like it, and life is hard, and I'm not a huge fan of the physical realm. And the thing about that is that over time, living in that mindset creates health issues. And that disconnect really created health issues in my body where I felt like I didn't trust, I wasn't grounded, I was much happier kind of floating around in the ethers. But the bottom line is that we are here in our bodies for a reason, to be connected, to have the experience of being human, and really living that experience in profound and magical ways. That life is just not this humdrum thing that we just kind of have to push through day after day after day, that it really should be joyful and blissful, and that we get to co-create that destiny. And so that was really sort of the hallmark beginning of my story. And of course, as life goes on, I experienced high stress. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune deficiency. And then I just kind of put all the pieces together of what I learned, both academically and my spiritual studies and my life experience. And here I am, really to help women feel like they can co-create optimal health and well-being within. And it's absolutely an energetic process, a mindset process, as you know, and really the energy of what we eat, what we think, and what we believe really profoundly affects our health and how well and gracefully we'll age, and how inspired we decide to become, and how connected we are to the bigger picture outside of, the small reality of living in a physical body in the physical world.
Yeah, good morning, John. Good to see you. So you mentioned another one of our words that we're highlighting today, which is awareness. And amazingly, you got that awareness through a near-death experience, which my ex-father-in-law, well, he's gone now, he's on the other side, he actually had that happen to him 3 or 4 times. And it's amazing to me the difference in perspective that awareness gives. Yeah. So I'm curious, and because my background is biology too, one of the questions that I'm often asked, and I would love to hear your comment and how you frame it, is, so how do we connect the physical to the spiritual? Like the physical, we feel like we can touch it, we can feel it, there's evidence, and yet we also know the spiritual's there. But how do you talk about the connection?
Well, it really depends upon the angle, right? Because as you know, we are particularly complicated beings. There's the psychological aspect, the biological, the physiological, the spiritual. But at the end of the day, what I teach my clients is, if you take everything that we see and feel and are around in the physical realm, when you break that down into smaller and smaller parts, into cells and molecules and atoms, eventually we get down to that subatomic layer of our chemistry, so to speak. And then we begin to enter that realm of the quantum field. And so the quantum field is this small, small interconnected web of everything that exists in the universe. And we're very much a part of that. If you think of yourself more as an energy being and a solid physical being, right? So we're vibrating right now as we're sitting here talking, right? Our bodies are moving, our molecules are moving, our atoms are moving. And on that smaller level, on that quantum level, we're just a blanket of energy, and we're participating in that all the time. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And one of the things when we talk about quantum energy is, and the tiny little particles that are us, we're a collection of tiny particles, is the importance of that space in between
Right.
the particles.
I know.
Because it's like when I'm helping people heal DNA, quite often it's not the sequence of the DNA itself that is out of alignment. It's the spaces
Right.
between that are out of alignment. And so the spirit, if you know, or what we call spirit or soul or whatever it is that you want to talk about, I feel actually exists within the space. And
I totally agree with you. And you know, we are much more energy than we are matter, right?
Mhm.
And so, even if we talk about the nucleus of an atom and the electron going around that atom, the space in between is really enormous, even at that atomic level. And so I agree with you. We are much more energy beings than we are matter beings. And I'm sure that you probably teach this as well to your clients, that it's important to get back into that energetic mindset where we're not just honing in on our physical reality, because it's that energetic mindset that helps us to be much more expansive and much more, I want to say, when we come to terms with our amazingness, our awesomeness, and our expansiveness, that's when we can take a step back and really be in awe of ourselves. And when we get in that space of awe, we get in that space of thinking, oh my gosh, I really am amazing. I'm amazing exactly where I am right now. And what can I do to feed that awesome energy? And then that's when we start coasting into things like bliss and joy and mindfulness, and just being in the moment of really caring for and loving on ourselves in a way that we really deeply, deeply and truly deserve.
yeah, and it's in that beautiful sense, when we're aware of that beautiful sense, that I find that there's also an awareness of connection to others.
Right.
You know, there's lots of stuff going on at the moment in the world that's suggesting that people are disconnecting.
Right.
And there's lots of forces that seem to want to disconnect us at a physical, emotional, and a psychological level.
Completely.
But when you really get down to who and what we're all connected. You know, there's that beautiful balance that we can reach. Maybe we should talk a little bit about balance. What do you think?
I think we should. Yes, absolutely.
And balance is our third word for today. So jot that down, listeners. And I'd love to hear from our listeners what they think balance is. Like, if you're listening and you have an idea of what balance is, go ahead and throw that up on screen, because it's an interesting concept. Lots of people say, I want balance. I want balance in my life, and I want work. I love the one about work-life balance, and I don't know if that means that, you want to set up the timing.
Right.
I want a little bit of work and more life.
Right.
Suggesting that we don't live when we're at work.
Right.
But it looks like we've got some people who are shy. So go ahead and let's talk about balance. What does balance mean for you?
And, I do want to go back a little bit to what you said about that space in between the DNA, because I think that that's really critical. And it kind of ties into the spiritual aspect of what I've always heard is that God is the space in between your thoughts. And I kind of hold that with me. I don't know if it has great, deep, profound meaning, but I think that there's truth in that statement, right? Because it is the space in between. And so balance to me is sort of the same way. And we know when we're in our physical body, and it goes back to that disconnect, if we don't feel connected, we're not nurturing ourselves. We're not necessarily nurturing ourselves with the foods we eat, the thoughts we think, and the beliefs that we hold. And so, that absolutely comes into play with overeating, eating the wrong foods, or the fact that in general, 70% of our thoughts are negative and repetitive. And so balance isn't just sort of this kind of idea of, oh, I'm going to treat myself to the spa once a month, or I'm going to make sure that I have like a work-life balance. It's more about creating balance within, energetically, making sure that we nourish ourselves at the physical level, the mental level, emotional level, and spiritual level. So it's just about introducing energies that keep us aligned with our individual authenticity, because it's different for all of us. So whatever really resonates.
Yeah, and what I'd love to do is ask our listeners at the moment, like, just stand up for just a second and stand on one foot if you can safely, and just notice what happens. And when you stand on one foot, what you'll notice is that your foot makes tiny little adjustments in your balance to keep you standing. And so balance is not a point. You don't like, now I'm not, and now I am. It's a constant requirement, as you said, food, energy, sleep, thoughts, mindset, beliefs. All of these things contribute, I think, to balance. And balance is not okay, I've made it, now what?
Right, exactly. And I
go ahead and sit. If listeners are standing, they can sit down. I don't want them standing there the whole rest of the show.
It's early in the morning, right? Our California listeners are standing on their feet at 7 a.m.
Yeah, well, let's have a big welcome to all of our listeners all around the world, because we broadcast all around the world.
Nice.
And you mentioned another word or I think you mentioned another word that maybe we can explore a little bit, which is the word flow. And what that gets, how people get into flow. So I understand that that's something that you offer in your mastermind, and that many of the gals that you work with are looking for, is getting into flow. What does that mean for people?
So, flow is the idea of really and truly getting in alignment with what our intuition and our authentic self tells us that we need. And so, I'll try to break it down in a simple way. If you think about what really lights your fire, what really makes your heart sing, what really enables you to feel like you're living in the moment, and you're radiating your energy outward. right? That's what flow and alignment are. And we create flow again with the energies that we introduce into our beingness. And so I teach this from a perspective of looking at the 7 energy bodies, the subtle energy bodies that expand from the physical outward to the spiritual level, right? And so it's very important to nurture ourselves at all of those levels, that it's not just, oh, I'm going to eat a good meal and then go to the gym and have a workout. There's so much more going on that we really do have to become aware or have an increased awareness of how we can align with who our heart tells us that we would like to become. And so really it's a process of becoming, and that's why we're here on the planet. This is not, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, to go to my high school reunion, or I'm going to do this, right? There's just so much more going on. This is an evolutionary process of really getting in energetic alignment with who we really are, what we need, and what we feel like we deserve, that we would like to experience in our lives.
Yeah, and I like what you were saying there about flow and about how that is important with the energy. And I also think it's really important to give a practical example too. I mean, for me, when I'm in flow, I'm busy doing something, and whether that's I'm not much of an artist myself, but whether that's someone painting, or whether that's for me playing with a new idea or concept, or being creative in some way, and that sense that time no longer exists,
Right.
and
Right.
you're just being, and you're enjoying, and you're creative, and there's that lovely sense. That's flow. And it
Right.
can be highly productive or highly creative.
Right.
And so if I said to you as a client, that's the state I want to be in, do you have any suggestions on how to reach that?
Well, I work with women primarily. And one of the things that I've noticed with women is that we tend to, in our busy lives, we tend to stay in our mental body a lot. We're thinking, we're problem solving, and you and I both know as entrepreneurs, trying to get things done and going through a to-do list. And, for women that are raising children and,
There's nothing like a
constantly.
busy mom, right?
Right, right. Just in that constant state of going, going, going. And what I noticed in my 20s and 30s is that I could easily keep up with that. But then, as you mentioned at the beginning of your show, our brain chemistry starts to change in our 40s. And all of a sudden, our values begin to shift. And that going and going and going doesn't seem to have that same priority, but we don't know how to get out of that space. And so part of what I teach my women is to get back in that energetic flow of what I call the yin yang balance, where yang is that masculine energy, where it is logical and problem solving and thinking and going and doing. And the yin, that feminine energy, is subtle, it's creative, it's flowy. It is much more about darkness and water and going within and intuitive. And so when we spend too much time in that mental place, outside of the consequences of our thoughts being 70% negative and repetitive, but when we're in that mental space, we're not honoring our really beautiful, amazing feminine energy. And we're not tapping into that creativity, and we're not taking time to nurture our intuition, which, both men and women have. And the balance of that yin yang, of that masculine feminine, really does matter. And so part of what I do is to remind women to learn to be okay, to get out of their heads and get back into their heart, get back into their entire beingness. It's just not a mental, physical process. There's so much more going on.
Oh, that's awesome. And you mentioned yet another one of our words. We've actually had all five, and we're going to take a little break in a moment. But first, I'll run through the list so that our listeners can jot them down. And if you've got all five, you can go ahead and pop them in the chat. We talked about energy and awareness and balance and flow. And you mentioned yin. And after the break, let's talk a little bit more about yin yang and what that means for our lives. So we will be right back after this short break.
Mental fitness, the missing X factor for enhancing performance, achievement, and success. Mental fitness empowers you with the magic of 3: stabilized mood, peace of mind, deeper relationships. Time to make it happen? Grow the self-command muscle. Intercept your self-defenses. Build your inner wisdom. In less than 15 minutes a day, gain the missing X factor. Let me show you how.
There comes a time we wonder, what's next? For women like us, as we stand at the edge of fulfillment, are you feeling unsettled, restless, not quite right? That's midlife awakening. Are you looking for fulfillment? Or to squeeze more juice out of life? Midlife awakening at the edge of fulfillment, don't miss it. We understand. By phone or laptop, wherever you are, come join us. Friday 10 a.m. Eastern Time, on Head Heart Synergy Facebook business page, or here, on the Women for Women Network Radio and Talk 4 TV.
Well, welcome back. And before the break, I said that we'd talk about yin yang, but there's something else that I think that we should do right now before we have that discussion, and that is pull an oracle card. Are you willing to do that?
I would love that. That sounds fabulous.
All right, so I'm going to shuffle, and you just simply say when, and I will, unless a card jumps out of the deck, of course, because sometimes that happens, but I will pull the card that you feel intuitive.
Like one's going to jump, but I'll say when. In a bit.
Oh, okay. I'll keep going.
Yeah. Okay, when?
All right. The card that comes out today is, oh my goodness, it is, I don't know if you can see that. It is what it is. What a beautiful card. And it's a doorway on the card. And a pathway. So let me read what it is all about, and see if it resonates for us today. I'm sure it will resonate for somebody out there. So what happens when you look at the world? Is it only as you assume it to be? You know, a door closing isn't an invitation to just take a battering ram to it. If there were another door, it may lead you to a different destiny. Can you try now to accept things as they are? Shift your focus and attention until you can find another door that will open for you. When you are no longer in denial about what's in front of you, you become empowered to make necessary changes with respect to yourself, your inner self, your attitude, your choices. And the irony is that this transformation can only happen once you surrender to the idea that things are exactly as they are meant to be. So step back with clarity and acceptance, and realize that life is offering you something magical right now, as it is. And even if circumstances send you on a temporary detour, you will discover treasure beyond imagination and a new way to embrace the world when you're ready for a new door to open.
I love that.
Yeah, it is what it is. Wow. And surrender, the word surrender comes up for me a lot. Obviously, I need to surrender more. But we were talking about yin yang before the break. And did that card connect in any way, that reading? to the yin, the concept of yin yang for you?
Well, I think really for me, that card resonated with the idea of practicing mindfulness. So no matter what is happening in our world and in our lives, the moment that we get into the space of being intentional, regardless of what's going on, it can liberate us from feeling attached to an outcome or using mental energy, even wasting mental energy to try to force situations into what we want them to see instead of allowing life to unfold. And when we allow life to unfold, we're really in that yin space of surrender, of coming from a heart-centered space, of allowing our intuition to flow, right? And so to me, that it's a gentle unfolding. When I think of yin, I think of, Earth Mother, or that feminine energy that guides us and heals us and keeps us whole and grounded and connected. Very much so. It's a connection. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, because the world right now is full of very masculine energy.
Right.
And nature wants a balance,
Right.
We were talking about. And so that beautiful yin, that feminine energy is, I love that. Thank you. Is letting things surrender. So I'm going to do a little bit of a left turn and ask, what's the best mistake you've ever thought you've made?
Oh my gosh. Well, I should tell everyone watching or listening that I am my sun sign is Gemini. My rising sign is Gemini, as is Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So I incarnated on the planet as a wowza, over the top Gemini girl. So part of my experience as being a Gemini is that I will always jump in feet first, head first, everything first, regardless of what may or may not happen. And I'm all about learning from my mistakes. So to pick one, oh my gosh. I don't know. I think that probably if I continue to talk, it'll kind of emerge, but yeah. I don't, I just think that I love making mistakes because we learn from them. So in like a very cheeseball way, this is not a giant mistake, but I remember when I first was going to Italy and I started speaking Italian, and I walked into a cheese shop and I said to the cheese shop owner, "Can I try on your cheese?" Thinking that I wanted to buy the cheese, but I mixed up my verb. And, I'll never forget the difference between try on and buy again. And so,
can I try it on in case I don't like the cheese?
Yeah, and so, I mean, for me, I feel very comfortable with what I don't know. I feel very comfortable with the mistakes that I made. And I'm always feeling like my intuition guides me down a path. And so even if I run into a huge brick wall, that's okay too. And it kind of goes back to the card that you pulled, right? And so, I guess on a more serious note, one of the bigger mistakes that I made where I wasn't listening to my intuition was when I was feeling ridiculously stressed out and I was feeling physical symptoms and I just kept moving forward. And I ignored my physical body. And I really, as when we started off talking about me having that disconnect with my near-death experience, I had that pattern in my life of not listening to my body. And our bodies and our physical symptoms are there to tell us what we need to look at and heal at a deeper level. So it might be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be a spiritual aspect, it could, and it could be a past life aspect, right? So there's so much going on. And so probably, like I said, on a much more serious note, I definitely ignored my body really yelling for help. And I just was in a place where I wanted to continue to work really hard, that I thought I could weather that high stress. And eventually my body gave out and I was diagnosed with an autoimmune deficiency. And so,
Wow.
and it ended up being a huge blessing, because now I'm sitting here, talking to you about all things science and spirituality and healing and becoming and being inspired and living this beautiful, blissful, passionate life. But in that space, I really I hit a massive brick wall. And then I took time to go within, create balance within, and really heal my body and reverse that autoimmune deficiency on a much deeper level. And so that, in the bigger picture, is probably just a really huge lesson for me.
Yeah, our body, it was years before I realized that my body was more than just to move my head around.
Right. Exactly.
And we have these aches and we have these pains and we have, the discomfort. And often our response to the discomfort is exactly what you experience, that resistance.
Right.
Like if I just ignore it, it'll go away.
Right.
Well, the way I've discovered that our body works for us is it just starts yelling a little louder.
And it keeps doing it.
We get more discomfort. And it's like someone knocking on your door that must deliver a message. First they start to knock politely and gently, and eventually they're kicking the door down.
Right.
The message must be received, or else it's at your peril to not pay attention to your body.
I agree. And, we live in a world with Western medicine, and I'm not knocking Western medicine, but the disconnect of Western medicine where we're not our own locus of control in creating and co-creating our health, where when things go wrong, we pop a pill, we go to a doctor, and everything is coming from an external source, when healing really deeply comes from within. And there's just no doubt about it.
This is a super timely discussion, isn't it, for what's going on in the world right now, where Big Pharma has an agenda. Lots of people have an agenda to try and manipulate, convince, cajole, coerce others into doing what they don't want to do for their body.
Right.
And I think you're right. It's a very individual thing. And when we're in tune with our body and we're in tune with ourselves, our inner selves, then we can make choices that are best for us.
I completely agree.
Yeah. Which means it may not be the same for everyone.
It's not the same. The food is not there's no prescribed diet. There's no prescribed way of being or thinking. And, especially with food, because most of us have a relationship with food. We all have to eat to survive. There are very few of us that can kind of like sort of take or leave food. Right. Mm-hmm. And I always say to my women, remember, your relationship with food and your physical body is an evolutionary process. The way that you grow in your mind and your psychology and your spirituality, right? You don't set deadlines for when you're going to become enlightened. So don't set right. So you don't have to set a deadline for when you're going to be perfect or eat perfectly or think perfectly or be perfect. It's not about that. It's a very gentle, kind unfolding that we experience throughout our lives, just to grow in our conscious awareness.
Well, I think about the title of this show. I mean, this show is called Midlife Awakening, at the Edge of Fulfillment. And and we're all at the edge of fulfillment, and it is at midlife that we start to think more deeply about things.
Right.
We, sometimes it's because the kids have grown up and are moving out. Sometimes it's because, we've got the space in our relationship to do that, or perhaps we've entered a time in our lives where we're not building so much. We're, you've got the house, the car, the this, the that. Most of us have way too much of, the stuff that we've received.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to really start looking a little more deeply about our purpose for here in the world.
I completely agree. And I think that, going back to the yin yang, we spend so much time as women in our 20s and 30s interacting in that fast-paced, action-oriented space, building our careers, raising our families, whatever we're doing. And at some point, it's good to return home to ourselves and really, really deeply listen to our bodies, listen to our souls, listen to that deeper aspect where we really can begin to hop into the belief that we co-create our fulfillment.
We co-create everything, even the stuff we don't like.
Even the stuff we don't, we're doing it all the time, whether we know it or not, right? The quantum field is really good at listening, right?
I love being reminded and doing the reminding that everything that you see in the world is a reflection of you.
Exactly. I know.
So if you don't like something,
right,
it's time. It's an invitation to figure out what it is that you're not liking. And
I agree.
An invitation to change it. But we are coming up on our time, and so is there any message that you would like to give that you haven't had an opportunity to share with us today?
I think really I'm in that space of being the cheerleader for people, for women, to just feel empowered that they are absolutely co-creators in their own lives and what they want to see manifest and how they can create optimal health, reverse some kind of dis-ease within, and really create an energetic flow and balance to become and unfold and be utterly amazed at that process and who we are becoming. So thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate you inviting me here.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I've enjoyed our conversation, Dr. Sheri. And I just want to remind our listeners and our watchers that we have had our 5 words. So if you want to pop them in the chat, the 5 words were energy, awareness, balance, flow, and yin, Y-I-N, yin. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And if our listeners or watchers want some specifics about exactly what they can do in order to shift their mindset so that they are more aware, I'm sure that they can contact either you or I and get some practical tips and hints and that kind of thing. I would encourage them to reach out to you at mindsoulbodybalance.com.
Yeah, and everyone, you can email me at Dr. Sheri at mindsoulbodybalance.com. Yeah.
There it is. Awesome.
There it is. Great.
There
Thanks,
we go. And I also want to say thank you so much, and that our viewers can join more like-minded people in a Facebook group that I make available called Mindfully Moving Forward. And you are welcome to join us there, continue the conversation. And I am your host, Lorraine LaPointe. This has been Head Heart Synergies support, reminding you that on the edge of fulfillment, there is a choice. You can stay on the edge and get what you've always got, or become just a little bit courageous and move beyond the edge to get what you really want. And I'll say, see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you.